Hello, everyone. Welcome to Authority Architects. Today we have Sam Gammell joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Sam is the head of advisor marketing for Capital Group based in Los Angeles. She's recognized for her leadership in developing authentic new school approaches in wealth management. Before Capital Group, she was at Kraft Foods. She is a USC and UNC grad and donates her time to many organizations, including but not limited to Raise the Bar, Career Spring, and the Posse Foundation. So thanks again for joining us, Sam. It's going to be really cool to dive into this conversation and hear about your really extensive experience at Capital Group and beyond.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, you guys.
Cool. So, Sam, just as a little background, I know you grew up in Michigan and had a lot of interesting stuff happening there, but how, again, for our audience, did you get into this field and get started in marketing and then into Capital Group specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that anyone imagines themselves as a kid I'm going to be a corporate marketer. But as you mentioned, yeah, I was born in Michigan, but I moved around a lot growing up, and it was because of my dad's job. He was in sales and marketing, and I never quite understood what he did until now because I actually do similar things to him. So maybe it was like osmosis, right? That sales and marketing was just kind of in my bones, but. At USC, I'm a huge sports fan, thought I wanted to work in sports marketing. So that's where I started my career. I started volunteering in the athletic department and then got an internship, then went to work for a professional sports team and quickly realized that it was more fun being a sports fan than actually working for the team. It's a little bit like working at Disneyland and seeing Mickey Mouse with his head off behind stage. You're like, oh, I want the magic, right? So quickly learned that sports wasn't for me, but I then ended up working for a couple of small agencies, doing more like account project management type of work. And I enjoyed it, except I realized I wanted to be the client. I really liked the idea of setting the strategy and then working with partners to bring that to life. So I started looking for a new role and realized that all of the jobs that were interesting to me required an MBA. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go get an MBA. And so I did that and through business school discovered brand management, which was like the perfect fit for me. When you think about brand management is really a combination of general management and marketing. And I really enjoyed this idea of getting to run the business and really come at it from a marketer's lens around, customer insights and why folks do what they do and the communication and advertising plans and all of that stuff around it. And so was lucky enough to go work for Kraft Foods after graduating. And I learned so much there. I learned how to run a business. I learned how to be a marketer. I learned how to put together a real integrated marketing communications plan. I learned product strategy. I learned how hot dogs are made. We can talk about that later if you want, working on the Oscar Mayer brands. And then, a few years in, what I realized was that, consumer packaged goods, working for such a large company was great in many respects, but it was also at the time very very defined. So it was like you start at this level, you check these boxes, you move to this level, then you check some more boxes, and then you move. And what I realized was that I wanted more freedom to have a more unique impact. Sometimes I felt like I was a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, trying to check these boxes. And so I was looking for something that gave me a little bit more freedom to be more creative around not just the strategy piece of it, but then the kind of marketing piece as well. So never in a million years, you guys, did I think I'd work in financial services. At the time, this was after the financial crisis, not a great reputation, was not something that was on my radar, but I got a call from Capital Group. And there were two things about it that really spoke to me. One was just the culture of the organization. And I think as a professional, maybe you guys can appreciate this too. You start to learn what kind of environments you work well in and the kind of people you work well with and the ways of doing the work, and culturally, to me, capital just seemed like a great fit. Just really smart people, a lot of room to make your mark, a lot of just a thoughtful, supportive environment. And so to me, I was like, hey, like that sounds really interesting. And then two, at the time, again, this was post-financial crisis, capital had recognized that they needed to make marketing a more strategic part of their business as the world was changing. Their distribution approach needed to change. So they thought about investing in and evolving their sales, product, and marketing functions. So as a somewhat experienced but still relatively junior consumer packaged goods marketer, I had a chance to come in and build a lot of new stuff. And that kind of opportunity to really color outside the lines, there was not a defined right pathway here, was really attractive. And so
Yeah.
best professional decision I ever made was to kind of take that leap of faith, to move from, I joke, selling hot dogs to moms to selling mutual funds to financial advisors. But it's been an incredible ride. And I've been at Capital Group for the last 13 years. I've had 6 different roles and really gotten a chance not only to make an impact on our business and on our customers, but certainly professionally, I've just grown so much and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I've had a lot of really wonderful experiences along the way. So that is how I got to where I am today.
That is so interesting, Sam, and appreciate that context. And there's so many like things I want to ask about within that. Like, what is your experience kind of with craft? Like, how does that apply to, like, I'm so curious about what strategies you've implemented.
Mhm.
But
How is the hot dog made?
yeah, how is hot dog made? But the first question and this is going off book a little bit, but I feel like our audience would appreciate it. Do you think, and I'm sure the answer is some degree of it really depends on the person, but do you think it is of value, like for most people who want to go into marketing seriously, to pursue that degree of education like you did, or was that really unique to you?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, it's probably it depends. I think that as a marketer, particularly kind of a strategic marketer, and that's where my career has always been. I think to do a really good job, not only do you have to really understand your customer, you have to understand your business. You have to understand how your company makes money. You have to understand how they compete. And I do think that having my business training has helped me with that. It helped to connect those dots. And I do think that over the years, I've really appreciated just how important it is to understand the business and be able to understand the customer. And then you start to kind of marry those two things together to, do a successful marketing effort.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes
That's
a lot of sense.
That's so true too, Sam. I feel like a lot of people who do marketing don't understand business as a whole as well, and like how marketing connects into the business. But when you have a more business focused background, whether it's getting a degree or maybe even working in some other way with the business, you sort of get that and you can piece together how the whole thing works together.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, marketing isn't just like an ad campaign, right? I mean, that's the fun, sexy part. But I think what I've learned, even across industries, is marketing is really about how to find ways to drive business growth through differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is around knowing your customer. It's around knowing your industry. It's knowing your competitors. It's telling a great story. And I think there's a lot of different ways that marketers can help contribute to that overall business strategy. And then actually, right, there's unique capabilities and things that the function does, right, to complement what the rest of the business does.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, obviously, we've had a working relationship with your organization, and a lot of times it's telling some of those personal stories, the background information to humanize the different folks that are contributing so much to your clients. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you face in establishing authority in your space? Obviously, reputable brand, people know the brand, so that's going for you. But when you're looking to continue establishing that personal connection of, here are people that really know what they're talking about and are going to be trustworthy when they give their money, when you hand your money over, what is the biggest challenge, and what are some of the solutions that you've employed?
Yeah. I mean, I could answer that question two ways. I could answer it like personally, like how have I had to, right, establish my own authority within an organization, but then also as a brand and as a business, how do we establish our authority? So maybe I'll try to be brief, but hit both of them. I think for me personally, and this can be a challenge for marketers, particularly in an industry where maybe marketing isn't as well known or understood as others. So I'll juxtapose my like consumer packaged goods experience with financial services or asset management, really. Um, Consumer packaged goods companies, they're run by marketers. They're
Yeah.
run by people, right, who were brand managers long ago, or at least they used to be, right? Now some of them are run by other functional experts, but you don't have to spend a lot of time explaining, right, the value of customer insights and the value of thinking through product positioning and differentiation and right that piece of it, let alone the like, why do we need to spend money on advertising and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Whereas in asset management, what I found, especially a capital group coming in when I did, so you got to rewind the clock a bit. Coming into this organization, it was an organization that realized they needed to evolve their marketing capability, but they didn't understand it. And that's not a knock. It's just right. That wasn't their expertise. This was an organization that was built by investment professionals. And that's still right at the core of what we do. And, with a really robust sales team. So it was actually really interesting early on trying to, not, it wasn't just me, it was my fellow marketers who had come in, like, how do we establish authority around the value of this function, around the ideas and the things that we thought we needed to do as an organization that had never been done before. I mean, when I started, like, you couldn't use the word product around here. Like, we talked about brand, people were like, oh, I don't know, right? Like advertising was like, it was like a whole thing. And so there was a certain amount of just even establishing authority within the organization and trying to drive a change in mindset, right, and try to build a capability for the business. And the way that I approached that along, it wasn't just me, right? There was a whole team of people, but I think that's where you got to be humble enough, right, to kind of know that you have a lot to learn. It gets back to my earlier comments around I had to really invest in getting to know and understand this business, establishing my authority by demonstrating I was willing to put in the work, I was willing to learn, I was willing to try to, become an expert of the business so that they could trust that the ideas I was coming up with weren't just like fun marketing stuff. It was like things, right, that were rooted in what we were trying to achieve for the business. That's maybe one piece of it. The other side of it, how do we as a brand establish authority with our customers? I think one of the biggest challenges, and this isn't unique to asset management or wealth management, but how do you differentiate yourself when everybody sounds the same, when everybody looks the same, right? Everybody, says they do the same thing. And in a category like ours, not everyone's super financially savvy. They may not understand the difference between what an advisory relationship is, for example, versus not. They may not understand like why the fees of our business are the way that they are, as examples. And so I think one of the biggest challenges and how do you establish authority to then differentiate yourself? I think that's rooted in kind of the trust, and you have to prove it, right? It's not enough to say it. You have to prove it through all of the interactions you have with your customers, your potential customers. And that's why, and Michael, I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but brand is so much more than just like your product or your logo. It's the whole experience. And so we talk a lot about Capital Group. How do we show up? I didn't get that. Did you try again? Oops, sorry, Siri. How do you establish that in everything that you're doing, right? From when a customer calls you, when a customer visits your website, when a customer comes to an event of yours, or they look you up on LinkedIn, you have to deliver a consistent, right way to kind of build that reputation and build that trust to then really be able to differentiate yourself and deliver on the things that you say you're going to do. And you can't just do that from like one ad, right? It takes time and investment for that. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, Sam, too, building on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a big part of Capital Group's messaging too is the people at Capital Group. So like, who are the people that you're going to be working with who are behind your financial products? And that's a big part of the marketing that's going out there too. It's not just about, hey, this is the product. The differentiation is also in the people that are helping behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we've become more comfortable with that over the last few years and really featuring the people, our investment professionals, our on the wealth management space, our private wealth advisors. Because at the end of the day, I mean, what are we really? What are we really? We're people. We're intellectual capital. We don't create widgets here. And so it really is so much about the people. And one, we try to talk about the process. How do we think about things? What are the frameworks we use? How do we establish that credibility over time, that repeatable way of looking at the markets and making decisions? And then because Capital Group doesn't have like one star, right, like investment professional or person, how do you show that coming to life through demonstrating it across various people, that work for the organization? And I think in the financial services business, particularly wealth management, you hire people you trust. You wouldn't just give your money over, right, or your client's money over to someone that you didn't think had a high level of integrity and a high level of expertise. And so being able to showcase the humans behind what we do is really important.
Absolutely. I mean, and we're seeing that not only in financial services, but across a lot of the clients that we work with, healthcare to automotive even. It's like when you go to buy a car, everyone knows the brands, BMW, Mercedes, Toyota, but it's like, who is the person that's actually going to be knowledgeable and can walk you through the process? There's like a shift to focusing on those individuals and the authenticity behind it, kind of in all areas that we're working in, which is really interesting and makes a lot of sense because with all of the digital noise out there, it's the authenticity that cuts through in a lot of that in a lot of the marketing collateral that has success, I think.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you guys about that. I mean, with a lot of the clients you work with, as right, things are getting more digital, the rise of AI, right? Like there's something special and differentiating about a human-driven interaction experience. I was reading this study by one of the big consulting firms. They do like an experience kind of awards every year, and they talk about the role of AI in customer experience. And it's not their thesis is it's not about who can use the most AI. It's like, how can you use AI to help you deliver personal human-like experiences, whether it's
Hmm.
coming and it's augmenting what a human does, or right, you're using technology to kind of help still deliver a personal, warm kind of experience. I think that's going to be the key going forward as we talk about the importance of differentiation. Um, there's still that human element there, right?
Yeah.
And so I think people, especially like high value transactions, buying a car, right, investing your retirement assets, like it's a little bit different than buying toothpaste, right? I think you want somebody you want to feel good about the humans behind all of that.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, that's the whole point in hiring an outside company to work with you on something is you have someone else to bounce ideas off of and to
Hmm.
work with and someone you can trust is working in your best interest.
Yeah.
So I think it's it's so interesting. Well, when there are like so many complex things at Capital Group, right? So many like complex ways, and I know we've worked together on some of them with the team, but like how do you find is the best way to simplify your message to so that it resonates with the end buyer ultimately?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, especially in a industry that can get kind of technical.
Hmm.
Um, so most of Capital Group's business is with financial professionals. So for most of our business, it's more of a B2B type of engagement. We have a small part of our business that you and I worked on together, which is
Yeah.
the B2C side, where we're talking right to the end investors. And in both cases, you do have to be careful about you need to meet your audience where they're at. And what I mean by that is you need to, use language that makes sense to them. You need to kind of come at it answering the questions that you know are going to be on their mind versus like, let me just tell you what I think you need to know, right? And I think this is where the power of storytelling really comes in. A couple of examples, the one that we've worked on together was really, having our financial advisors, our private wealth advisors, tell their own personal stories. Not talking about, right, the nuts and bolts of this, ETF or this mutual fund, but talking about why they do what they do, what kind of experience they want to deliver to their clients, what an investor could count on, right, experiencing if they were to work with us. When we work with financial professionals and trying to talk to them about whether it's a certain investment product or trying to, talk to them about different asset classes and how to think about, constructing portfolios that way, or even how do you build a business? We try to do it in a way that uses language that's going to be understood by them, that's going to try to simplify things, that's going to be able to be a story, right, with a real beginning, middle, end, actions, right, to take. There's nothing groundbreaking about what I'm saying here. It's just a reminder of like, how do you meet an audience where they're at? How do you use storytelling and try to simplify things that are really complex in order to get over that, right? And then move people along. At Capital Group, we have this like kind of joke. It's more of an internal thing where we're like, I'm going to tell you 3 things, right? And you try to like break it down into just 3 things because 3 things is easy to remember. And so there's just some tricks and things that you can use, especially in like a technical kind of sale. You've got to be careful to kind of get it just right.
That makes a ton of sense. Michael, we lost him. I wonder if it's an internet thing, but while we wait for him to rejoin, I can ask the next question. Defining moment, like in your personal career, that kind of shaped the way that you lead or kind of approach marketing challenges. I want to broaden it out a little bit and just make it more advice oriented. Like you've had marketing success, obviously at Capital Group and a tenure there, but also at kind of very different brands and businesses before that. Is there any kind of general overarching wisdom that you would say if you're a marketer entering either of these types of environments, I would highly recommend thinking about this or approaching challenges this way? I know that's somewhat broad, but I'm just curious if you can share.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, one of the defining moments or periods of time in my career really came, and it was more of like a leadership kind of aha. And I was going through this leadership course. This probably like 6 or 7 years ago by now. And what we talked a lot about was authentic leadership. And I think this was also at the time, like this kind of thinking was really starting to be really popular in terms of leadership circles and things. And one of the parts of it was just this idea of like, how do you, like, you've achieved what you've achieved because you have unique gifts or unique talents that other people do not. And so how do you lean more into what those superpowers are, the things that you're really, really good at versus, and this is how I started my career, focusing on the things you're not good at and trying to like get so much better. I mean, that was one of my challenges early on in my career, is that I felt like I was spending all this time focusing on the things that I wasn't a rock star at. And I was like, well, when do I get to do the fun stuff? When do I get to do the things, right, that I'm really good at? You kind of lose sight a little bit. And so I think once I kind of had that switch, and it was through this leadership course, to think about like, gosh, the thing that I uniquely bring is me and my superpowers and the things that I'm really good at. Like, how do I lean more into that and not worry as much about the things that I'll probably never be great at? You have to manage that kind of stuff because you don't want it to get in the way, right, of your success. So if there's some things you're not, so good at. But it was a real mindset switch. And so I think my advice to folks would be don't lose sight of that. And I think you're going to have so much more success, and it's going to feel better because you're not going to spend all this emotional energy worrying about the things that you're not good at, right? If you kind of lean into what your strengths are and put yourself in a position to leverage that, and then don't ignore the things that, right, you're maybe not as good at. Just don't let them get in the way. But you don't have to be the world's greatest. And I've been happy to see over the years, like that's, I think, just been a general switch as you think about leadership philosophy and coaching and stuff. And it's a philosophy I've taken too, not only for my own professional, but it's the advice I give to young career professionals. It's the advice I give to folks on my teams over the years. How do we help you be the very best version of yourself so that you can contribute to the work versus like worrying too much about that one thing that like, all right, it's fine. Like you're never going to be great at, whatever it was. For me, it was like forecasting. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not that good at forecasting like commodity prices for packaged meats. Sorry, right? But like that was the thing. And I was like, I could try to become the best at this, but why? Like somebody else do that.
And using your strength as your North Star. I mean, it sounds like that's advice not only in kind of thinking through the day-to-day of campaigns and things, but also like career choices, you're saying. Like, what type of job should I pursue? That sort of thing.
Totally. Well, I mean, if you were to bring it back to like maybe a brand conversation, like as a brand, I think you got to be really clear about what you are and what you aren't.
Yeah.
And you have to be really comfortable in just being who you are as that brand. Because if you try to be something you're not, it's probably not going to work as well. And so I think there's a lesson, right, kind of multi-layered in there about, and I think it's tied to just authenticity. And then you've really just got to lean into that.
I mean, I think that's so true, all the way from like the brand identity to the people behind the brand trying to be something they're not, can be detrimental to their own image as well. So final question here, Sam. We have it stated as like your mission in your words. You can take that how you wish. If what's on the horizon from a marketing standpoint for Capital Group, or just kind of in your own personal journey, what some of your goals are, just any last statements about kind of the horizon and what you see ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think one of the themes throughout my career maybe has been a couple of things. One is that I work so much better when I'm doing work with the team. If you put me by myself and said like, go do this thing all by yourself and then come back, it's like my nightmare. So I think there's something around the ability to work with a group of people to achieve a goal that brings me a tremendous amount of satisfaction. And I always learn a ton. I think the other side of it too is I want to leave a place better than how I found it. And whether that means, a chance to build the new and different, or a chance just to improve something that already existed. I think, my mission, and as I think about opportunities, here at Capital Group and beyond, like that's what I'm interested in. I want to work with a smart group of people to consistently learn and push the envelope and leave things better than we found them. And I think that that's certainly possible. Capital Group, of course I'm biased. It's a pretty exciting place to be right now, right? There's a lot of innovation going on, both from products, both from, the additional, value beyond investing types of services and capabilities that we provide to our clients, whether it's financial advisors or the end investor. I'm really excited to be here right now. And I think you're going to keep hearing a lot more from Capital around both. And I think, maybe one final comment that you guys have probably heard a lot about this, like the pace of change, right, will never be, it's never been as fast, but it'll never be as slow as it is today, right? Like, I just think that in order to continue to be successful as a professional and as a brand, you have to keep innovating. You have to keep moving forward and changing. And I look forward to doing that both personally in my career, but then also helping Capital Group with that.
Awesome. Well, those are some great words of wisdom, and thank you again for joining us today, Sam. This was really awesome to talk about your experience.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been fun.